So are you ready to dive into the world of 2022 BL? You've given us a ton of series.
A lot of content.
Everything from classic campus romances to some really wild concepts.
Yeah. 2022 is a year of experimentation.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, we're talking time loops, we're talking ghost stories. There's even a dystopian thriller kind of thrown in there just to keep things interesting.
Wow, okay. I'm intrigued already. But before we get into your own personalized watch list for us,
Yeah.
what were some of the big trends you noticed in 2022?
Well, you can't talk about BL without talking about campus romances.
Right.
They're everywhere.
Of course, yeah.
And, I think there's a reason why they're so appealing, that first love kind of story,
Yeah,
the innocence of it all, the whole backdrop of school life. It's
it's
just,
classic.
it's a potent combination. But what's really fascinating is how, the 2022 series use that very, very familiar setting to tell some really, really unique stories. Like, take Till the World Ends, for example. That one takes place in a dystopian world that's literally on the brink of collapse.
Oh, wow.
So talk about, adding some high stakes to your typical school romance.
Yeah, that one definitely jumped out at me from the list. And Triage, too, with the whole time loop thing.
Yes.
It seems like creators were really trying to, break the mold this year.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just the settings that got a little bit of a makeover. We also saw this surge in supernatural elements as well.
Oh, interesting. Like what?
So you have Ghost House. They went full on spooky.
Right.
And then you have something like Something in My Room, which kind of blended ghostly encounters with this really intense family drama.
So pushing boundaries, blending genres.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like the old creators realized they don't have to just stick to fluffy romance anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And speaking of trying new things, 2022 was the year of sequels and prequels.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Were they good?
Some really delivered, love mechanics. I know a lot of fans felt like that one really surpassed the original.
Okay.
Yeah.
Though I am seeing Country Boy on this list, and let's just say some stories are better left untouched.
You are not wrong. But hey, you could argue it keeps things interesting. Now, before we get into the good, the bad, and the what were they thinking, were there any titles that immediately caught your eye?
My only 12%. That one just screamed hidden gem to me.
Okay.
I kept seeing it pop up with positive reviews.
Excellent choice. My only 12% is definitely one we need to unpack. What about you? Anything else pique your curiosity?
The Eclipse, for sure. The whole all-boys school setting, mixed with protests and a mystery. I'm hooked already.
It really does sound like they managed to find something really special in such a familiar formula.
Exactly. And the
Yeah.
fan reactions were, they were off the charts. People connected with the characters and the
Mhm.
story on such a deep level. It really goes to show that authenticity, it resonates with viewers.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of unique concepts, let's move on to The Eclipse.
Yeah.
You were drawn to the whole all-boys school setting, right?
Mhm.
And the air of mystery, definitely.
Yeah.
It's not your, your typical lighthearted BL setup. You've got this strict prefect character who's, pulled into this world of student protests as unexplained events. Plus, there's a mysterious new student I'm sensing, layers here.
You're spot on. The Eclipse isn't just about, the romance. It dives headfirst into some really complex themes. We're talking political tension, social unrest, that struggle for individual expression. It's all kind of interwoven with the narrative.
Okay, so we've got romance, we've got mystery, A&D, we've got social commentary. Now I'm even more invested in watching this one.
It's a show that, it stays with you, that's for sure. Be prepared for a more, I'd say, demanding watch, but it's definitely rewarding. The dynamic between the two leads, it's electrifying, and it poses some really challenging questions about, loyalty, power, and even the price of change.
All right, so from heartfelt and authentic to, intense and thought-provoking, maybe we can, lighten the mood a bit with a dash of, time loop craziness. How about Triage?
Oh, Triage. Now that's a wild ride. You're a fan of time travel stories, right?
Guilty as charged. I can't resist a good time loop. And it sounds like Triage definitely delivers that in, spades. So what's the lowdown?
Picture this. You're an ER doctor,
Okay.
and you find yourself trapped, reliving the same day over and over and over again.
Okay, so that's the time loop part. But I'm guessing there's more to it than just, repeating Tuesday.
Of course. He's forced to confront this traumatic event.
Oh,
And each loop kind of reveals these new clues, deepening the mystery.
Ooh, I love a good mystery, woven into the romance.
Yeah.
And speaking of romance, does Triage actually deliver on that front as well?
Absolutely. In fact, the romance is actually the key to breaking the time loop,
Oh, wow.
which adds like another layer of complexity to the story.
Clever. So it's not just like a fun, mind-bending concept. There's real emotional depth there, too.
Yeah.
Now, we've talked about shows that push boundaries, that deliver unique stories. But what about those that are, shall we say, memorable for, like, other reasons?
Ah, yes. The ones that leave you speechless, but maybe not in a good way.
Exactly. And looking at this list, I can't help but wonder, Big Dragon, anyone?
I knew we'd get to that one eventually. It's something else, isn't it?
It's like a train wreck that you can't look away from, you know?
Yeah.
Over-the-top drama, questionable decisions. It's definitely a guilty pleasure kind of watch.
Precisely. And speaking of guilty pleasures, 21 Days Theory deserves a shout out. It's pure, unapologetic BL fluff. And you know what? It owns it.
Sometimes you just need that dose of sweetness and light, right?
Exactly. 21 Days Theory delivers just that. Charming leads, a feel-good vibe. It's the perfect escape when you just need a break from all the heavier stuff. It reminds us that even within a genre, there's room for, simple, well-executed stories that just make you happy.
But let's be real, not every BL series is. Like, in the winter, we've talked about the standouts, the guilty pleasures. But what about the ones that, I don't know, they kind of left us scratching our heads? The ones that had us reaching for the remote, maybe?
Ah, yes. The skip it list. Sadly, some shows just, they quite hit the mark.
And I think we can both agree that Checkout belongs, like, firmly in that category. You even flagged this one for me. What happened there?
It felt like they were trying way, way too hard to be, controversial.
Yeah.
The storyline was all over the place. The characters were really hard to relate to. And honestly, some of the content was just, I'm just going to say it was offensive.
It's like they forgot that a good story needs heart, not just, like, shock value.
Exactly. And then we have physical therapy.
Oh, physical therapy. Where do we even begin with that one? It seemed like it had, like, a lot of potential at the start.
I think that's what makes it so disappointing, to be honest. It had a somewhat interesting premise, but then the plot was just incoherent. The romance felt forced. It was kind of just a chore to watch, if I'm being honest.
It is a shame because I feel like some series genuinely did have, like, they had potential,
Yeah.
but then they kind of stumbled along the way, like The Love of Winter. Visually stunning,
Beautiful.
but the plot felt a bit predictable.
It's like they poured all of their creativity into the scenery and forgot about the story.
Yeah, yeah. And vice versa with that, like, fun body swap concept.
Yeah.
What could have been, like, a really hilarious and heartwarming exploration of identity just kind of fell flat.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder that, execution is everything. A great concept on paper can only take you so far if the story and the characters aren't there.
Right.
So, like, looking back at 2022, what's the key takeaway for our listeners?
I'd say 2022 was a year of, immense growth for BL. We saw more diversity, more experimentation, more risks being taken,
Yeah.
But with that comes, a wider spectrum of quality.
So it's a double-edged sword. More options, but also more chances of, like, stumbling upon a show that just, like, totally misses the mark.
Precisely.
Yeah.
But that's where being an in-frame viewer really comes in. Don't be afraid to be selective, trust your gut, and remember, you don't have to watch everything just because it's got that BL tag on it.
Great advice. Now, before we wrap up our deep dive into the world of 2022 BL, any final thoughts for our listeners at home? We've talked about how BL is, it's evolving, it's pushing boundaries. Where do you see this leading?
That's the big question, isn't it? As BL continues to grow, I think we're going to see even more experimentation with genres, themes, storytelling, you name it.
So, like, a future where BL isn't just a niche genre, but it's like a space for, like, all kinds of stories.
Exactly. And that's incredibly exciting. It means more representation, more voices being heard, and ultimately, more amazing stories to discover.
What a fantastic note to end on.
Yeah.
There you have it, your 2022 BL Deep Dive, complete with must-watches, hidden gems, and of course a few cautionary tales.
Now go forth and explore. There's a whole world of BL out there just waiting to be discovered.
And who knows, maybe next year we'll be deep diving into a BL space opera or a historical epic.